Next up is Mr. Dodd, number 4, AB 402.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. AB 402 would allow a Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, to authorize a city or district to provide municipal services outside its boundaries and sphere of influence to serve existing or planned uses subject to the approval at public noticed hearings where the Commission makes specific determinations. In order to approve that extension, the local commission must find that a service deficiency for the territory was identified and evaluated in a municipal service review approved by LAFCO. That extension will not result in adverse impacts on open space or agricultural lands or have growth-inducing impacts. That a later change of organization involving the subject territory and its affected agency is not feasible or desirable based on Commission policies. Section 56133 of the Government Code currently limits a city or district from extending municipal services outside its jurisdictional boundary and outside its sphere of influence only to respond to an existing or impending health threat to the public health or safety of residents of the affected territory. However, in circumstances that don't meet health and safety exemption in Government Code 56133, the only means to provide the service would be to annex the property into the sphere of influence. The result is that local jurisdictions may be required to extend their sphere of influence to serve an existing or planned use, even when this expansion is not in the best interest of preserving agriculture and open space or efficient provision of services. AB 402 seeks to give LAFCOs the flexibility to approve service extensions outside a sphere of influence without requiring annexation of territories that might, in fact, lead to unintended sprawl. By expanding the sphere of influence, the property and the land between the property and the city are one step closer to becoming a part of a city and developed. In some cases, this will mean existing law will promote development of agricultural lands and may lead to sprawl, even though that is contrary to the law's intent. Additionally, this bill is written permissively and does not mandate cities or districts to extend the service, even if the Commission approves the extension. Mr. Chairman, based on conversations I've had with you and the Vice Chair, I am proposing to amend the bill to narrow its scope and its limit to provisions to 3 counties, including Napa, Sonoma, and San Bernardino, as well as a sunset provision after 5 years, unless extended by the legislature at a later date. I will also be taking an amendment to clarify the term planned use, that it may be limited to projects that are included in a specific plan. I think these amendments satisfy concerns that have been expressed to me and will allow the legislature to determine if the provisions of the bill work well and whether there are any negative impacts. I respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Further witnesses in support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Karen Lang on behalf of the Napa County Board of Supervisors. They're in strong support of the bill. They appreciate their former colleague taking this on. Essentially, they found that the law stands in the way of common sense when it comes to people who live maybe adjacent to a water line, but they can't hook up to it because they're not inside the sphere of influence. I also want to note for the development pressures piece, the County of Napa has a voter-approved agricultural preserve in the valley, and you cannot build in it without a vote of the people. Anytime you want to build something new, you've actually got to have the voters and Napa approve that. So there's not maybe in other parts of the state there might be tension that would be created by this bill or perceived tension, but in Napa County very specifically, that the valley floor is pretty much locked up. So, but there are people that can't get some common basic needs and services because of the way that this particular statute works. So that's why they are in support of it.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman and members, John Gamper representing the California Farm Bureau Federation. We have a long history with this bill. It was part of a working group study by LAFCO in 2012, so it's nothing personal to the author. We had concerns when the bill was first drafted and when introduced as an Emerson bill in 2012. The problem is that extending services outside of the sphere of influence is growth-inducing by definition. The determinations that are contained in the bill are, unfortunately, the definitions of open space and agricultural land in the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg are very narrow. Open space has to be delineated by the jurisdiction in order to be open space. If the county decides that a vineyard is not open space anymore, it's not open space. Agricultural land actually has to be used for agriculture in order to be determined to be agricultural land. It can be part of a fallowing program, and that's fine, but if it is idled because it's purchased by a developer, then it's no longer agricultural land. So on page 3, beginning at line 4, the extension of services will not result in adverse impacts on open space or agricultural land or have growth-inducing impacts. It's always going to have growth-inducing impacts, and agricultural land and open space can be defined in such a way as that finding can always be made. So our concern is that just by its very nature, extending urban services into the unincorporated area is going to be growth-inducing, and our concern is protection of prime agricultural land. So we're unfortunately opposed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, committee member Silvio Ferrari with the California Building Industry Association. I apologize to the committee for not getting our opposed unless amended letter in time to make the analysis. We've had a number of discussions with the author, and we do look forward to working with them as this bill moves forward. Also looking forward to seeing the amendments when they come out and making sure our position holds. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Questions or comments from the committee? Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Gonzalez, second from Mr. Chu. Ms. Waldron.
Thank you, Assemblymember Dodd, for bringing this issue. And I know that it would definitely help Napa. I could understand the issue there. In my city, anything to do with taking services outside was, before I even got on the council, there were huge wars between the growth and non-growth folks. And anytime the county would broach a development out there and we were going to even be asked to put the sewer out, was cause for all kinds of contention. So I was just wondering, because one of the issues that was ongoing for my city, outside the boundary was an inundation zone where septic had failed, so we were allowed, or we had to, allow sewer to go out for the health and safety reasons. And I know there was a suggested amendment to not only just have affected residents but business owners be part of the health and safety reason to bring water or sewer out. And that's something that I could support. But in my area, it just wouldn't work because we do have ag, but we have no water, so our farmers a lot of times would lose the value of their property for development if we included that. It could never affect, open space or ag. So at this point, I'm going to be a no vote. I know it's narrowed down to basically a pilot. So I'll see where it goes.
For 3 counties, not including your county.
Right.
Any further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing that, Mr. Dodd, just briefly, I really want to credit you and thank you for the amount of work you've put in, with both Ms. Gonzalez and my staff and committee staff on this. I just request that you continue to work as this proceeds through. It's come a long way, I think. I'm also going to be a no vote today, but I just ask to make sure that you continue to work with, as you've indicated you would, to continue to work with the opponents to clean up some of the provisions as it proceeds through the process. So with that, yes, you may close, Mr. Dodd. First of all, I appreciate staff and everything as I indicated, and members who have called me to find out more about this bill. I just want to, and we've talked about Napa, but Sonoma County is, also very supportive of this, as is San Bernardino County. So I didn't want to leave them out. But just to leave as a flavor, Napa County was the first county to have an ag preserve in the United States. That was 45 years ago. I was a supervisor there for 14 years, and while I was there, we had a net increase in agriculturally zoned land during that time period, and I would expect that to continue because the Board of Supervisors this is what we do, and this is the the way it is. So it is not always growth-inducing, with all due respect to the Farm Bureau and the Napa County Board of Supervisors, who was also
you voted to support this 5-0. So I do appreciate your time and your attention, and I will continue to work as this bill moves on if it does. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. We have a motion and a second. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
The motion is do pass as amended. Mainshine.
No.
Mainshine, no. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Alejo. Alejo, aye. Chu. Chu, aye. Cooley.
Aye.
Cooley, aye. Gordon.
Aye.
Gordon, aye. Holden. Holden, aye. Linder. Linder, no. Waldron.
No.
Waldron, no.
Your measure is out 6-3.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Daly. Item number 11, AB 1290.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to present a district bill today. AB 1290, which will authorize Mayor's Memorial Hospital located in Fall River Mills in my district to use the design-build process when contracting for construction of the new building and other improvements. Mayor's Memorial Hospital is 50 years old and offers a variety of services from a 24-hour emergency room, 99-bed skilled nursing facility, and secures... Second. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I know you have a full schedule today. I'm not going to finish my presentation, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. That is a brilliant presentation, Mr. Daly. Witnesses in...
they're just here if you have technical
Thank
questions.
you. So if we have any questions for the witnesses in support, they're available. Any other witnesses in...
Amber King with the Association of California Healthcare Districts. In general, we're supportive of design build and support of this bill.
The Shasta County Board of Supervisors supports the bill. It's a critical access hospital for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none. Mr. Daly, excellent work on this. Thank you, not just for your presentation, but I know you've worked very hard on this. I want to commend you on this for all your work on this bill. Pleased to support it. You may close.
Ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Ask the clerk to please call the roll. Wait, yeah, let me...
The 31 amendments? No, I only want to take 30.
30 of the 32. No, this is do pass as amended to add an urgency clause.
Yes, thank you.
Motion is do pass as amended. Mainshine.
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Gonzalez. Aye. Gonzalez, aye. Alejo. Alejo, aye. Chu. Chu, aye. Cooley.
Aye.
Cooley, aye. Gordon.
Aye.
Gordon, aye. Holden.
Aye.
Holden, aye. Linder.
Aye.
Linder, aye. Waldron.
Aye.
Waldron, aye.
Bill's out 9-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holden, you ready? We have a motion from Ms. Gonzalez, second from Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'll be very brief. This is an opportunity for me to present Assembly Bill 1077. Before I begin, I'd like to accept the proposed committee amendments to ensure there's no inadvertent weakening of existing law. This measure will provide greater flexibility and transparency for mutual water companies to provide customers and shareholders better access to board meetings. Mutual water companies are unique entities in that they are private companies whose shareholders are the very customers they serve. Many of these companies are located in remote rural areas and serve small communities. Because of their size, these companies do not have the large public meeting spaces frequently used by city councils or special districts. In fact, even in my very urban district, one mutual water company's boardroom is only large enough to hold 14 people, while remaining compliant with the fire marshal's regulations. At the same time, these constraints should not deter participation in critical board decisions. After working with interested parties, AB 1077 is designed to mimic the teleconferencing provisions of the Brown Act. Using the growing availability of free, easy, and user-friendly conference call technology, AB 1077, enables mutual water companies to continue their efforts to reform and be more open and transparent. This bill is a simple, cost-effective measure that boosts public participation and has no known opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Witnesses in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Questions or comments from the committee? Yeah, correct. The motion would be do pass as amended per comment 5 in the analysis. Okay. Mr. Holden, you may close.
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
The motion is do pass as amended. Mainshine.
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Alejo. Alejo, aye. Chu. Chu, aye. Cooley. Cooley, aye. Gordon. Gordon, aye. Holden.
Aye.
Holden, aye. Linder. Linder, aye. Waldron. Waldron, aye.
Measure is out 9-0, Mr. Holden.
Thank you.
Next is AB 718, Mr. Chu. You may proceed.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members. Before I begin, I'd like to thank you very much. Thank the staff. I'm very happy to accept the amendments suggested by the committee in its analysis. AB 718 will prohibit a city or county from citing or fining a person for sleeping in an otherwise lawfully parked vehicle. We as a state must find a way to ensure that an undue burden is not being placed on those already struggling to get by. California has by far the highest number of homeless individuals of any state in the country. More than 1 out of every 5 homeless person in the United States live in California. I will also note that San Jose and Santa Clara region, where I represent, has the 5th largest homeless population of any region in the country. Oftentimes, for people that have lost their homes, a person's vehicle is their only shelter and their means of transportation to school or to work. In those all too often situations, a car is their only remaining personal properties and asset of value. Citing or fining someone for sleeping or resting in a lawfully parked vehicle can result in fines and, even worse, impoundment. For many, the cost of the fine or an impoundment fee is more than they can bear. Losing a vehicle to fine or impoundment deprive a person's experience homelessness of their shelter, transit, opportunity to retain housing, as you will hear later, their safety. But above all else, it deprives them for the dignity we should afford all people. With me today is John Balters, Policy Director at Housing California, and Michelle, who would like to share her personal stories with us.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, John Bowders, Housing California, sponsors of this piece of legislation. As the member noted, California has the dubious reputation of having the highest number of people experiencing homelessness in the United States. 20% of people in the 2013 HUD point-in-time count who were homeless in the United States lived in California. For a number of people who lost their homes and jobs during the recession, their car is the only remaining asset that they have. And for many of us, a car is simply a mode of transportation to the things that we do at our pleasure. But for people who are experiencing homelessness, it's often their shelter, their source of safety. It's the difference between finding employment and remaining unemployed. It is the difference between being on welfare or being self-sufficient. and it's often the key between keeping a child connected to their education or otherwise. We believe that this bill has been very narrowly tailored to address a very finite issue, which is whether or not a person who is parked lawfully in their personal own vehicle, their own property, has the right to be there and not be subject to a fine or impoundment simply because they're in that vehicle resting. This does not take away from any local government the ability to control issues related to meters, resident permits, no parking zones, hourly parking, move your vehicle or tow ordinances, or other facially neutral, adequate and appropriate local government controls. I'm going to stop there other than asking for your aye vote, and I'm going to let you hear from somebody who knows a little more about it than me.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm a little nervous, so my name's Michelle, and I wanted to tell you my story. I've had two major vulnerable moments in my life. One, I fled a domestic violence marriage that would have killed me eventually if I never left. Two, I was homeless for 4 months with my 3 children. The one thing that saved me through both of those was my car. So I have 3 children, 13, 12, and 6. I ended up homeless in West Sac. I never planned for being homeless. I never thought I would be sleeping in my car. I was scared, but being in my car made me feel safer than I would have been out on the streets. It gave me that last little bit of hope to eventually try to find housing for me and my 3 children. The nights that we stayed in my car were the ones that were really cold, windy, rainy. The car provided protection because I'm a woman and I have 3 kids, so I didn't have anybody else but just us, so it did provide us with protection. And the car enabled us to have our meals, do homework sessions for the kids. We had lights where we were able to even read a little. Making the kids presentable was what I was trying to maintain, because we were without and we didn't have to look the part. The car was our dressing room and sometimes our bathing room. I made sure my kids went to school every day. I worried that my kids would be taken away, but the car made that not happen because we had a shelter at the time. I was able to look for work, drive to interviews, and put in an application while the kids were in school. I was able to get help for my job skills in class with my car being able to get me from point A to point B. Now, if I had my car taken away from me while we were sleeping in it, if it was unlawful to sleep in West Sac, I would have tickets. I've never had a ticket in my life. That would have stressed me out even more than what my situation was. I might have gotten my car impounded and my kids taken away from me. That was my only fear I had, because I couldn't provide a shelter for them at the time. So having that car was my only motivation, and taking that away would have been the only thing that I owned personally, and that would have taken away all my motivation at that time. So I am grateful for my car. She saved us. Today I'm employed at Yolo County and helping people finding jobs now. My kids are getting ready for summer, and they have improved so much this past 5 months in school, and now we have permanent housing, and we are grateful. We still have the car ready just in case anything happens, but I'm trying to let it go slowly. I know people might think that it's just a car, but to my family, she was our safe place and our temporary home. She is part of our family, and we call her Betsy.
Thank you. Further witnesses in support. Name and organization.
Greg DeGier, appearing today on behalf of California Church Impact, the advocacy sister organization of the California Council of Churches, with many churches with ministries to homeless neighbors who understand this problem very well. We support the bill.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Kevin Baker, American Civil Liberties Union. Thank the chair and the committee for their concern about and commitment to homelessness and support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Frank Mecca, Executive Director of the County Welfare Directors Association, and for the reasons eloquently stated by Michelle, we're in support of the bill.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Hey, how are you doing? Mr. Chairman and members, Dan Keurig on behalf of the League of California Cities in opposition, regretfully. Sitting here next to Assemblymember Chu, who used to be on my board of directors just a few months ago. This bill preempts our local authority in an area that is obviously a very difficult issue for our communities. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean that the legislature should take away our authority to try to deal with these issues. The underlying causes of homelessness are certainly not at the doorstep of local government. There are larger issues going on in our economy. The federal government has backed out of the housing funding for decades. The state's level of funding for affordable housing has been very spotty and certainly not enough for homelessness over the years. And of course, you all know what happened to our redevelopment funding. So the money is gone to deal with the issues. So the solution is to try to get some housing, such as the witness was glad to hear ultimately was able to achieve, not to take away our authority. I had passed out to your offices earlier today. It just so happened yesterday in the LA Times they did an editorial that looked at the challenges the city of Los Angeles has been dealing with on this issue. And a former member of this body, Assemblymember Mike Fuhr, now city attorney of Los Angeles, has the challenge of trying to craft an ordinance that balances the community issues down there. What's he looking at? The issues he's looking at is, should these vehicles be able to park in residential areas, or should you try to have them in more commercial industrial zones? We won't be able to deal with those issues if you pass this bill. What about sanitation? How many cars should be on a particular block? These would be issues that most of you came from local government. You'd be sitting on your city councils trying to work through these issues. I guess what I'd ask you is don't take the power out of our hands to deal with issues that do impact our communities. And for those reasons, we oppose the bill. We think it's the wrong direction. It certainly doesn't put anybody else in a house to pass this bill. And for those reasons, we oppose the bill.
John Lovell on behalf of the California Police Chiefs Association, California Association of Code Enforcement Officers, and the college and university police chiefs. This bill is very well intended, but I would submit to you that it's an abandonment of the problem. It basically says, okay, you're homeless, go sleep in your car, and we're not going to let cities do anything. We think the more constructive approach is to aggressively support bills like SB 1330, AB 1335, which the police chiefs are, Speaker Atkins' bill on housing, to aggressively engage in the budget activities to assure that there are shelters available, that there are strategies available for affordable housing. There are some drafting issues with this bill that have public safety implications. What is resting in one's car? What can an officer do if someone calls and says, there's someone parked here who's really annoying us and presenting kind of a quasi-threat to us in our neighborhood? And we're not talking, we're talking about fragile neighborhoods where people could be as well. So what are those options? What are we going to be doing about sanitation issues like that? As Mr. Keurig referenced, the Los Angeles Times had a very thought-provoking editorial on this issue where they discussed the issue of using zoning where people who all they had was their cars could be in certain areas of a location. If this bill were to pass in its current form, that option is no longer available. I would submit that there are better strategies to have durable, sustainable solutions to homelessness rather than what amounts to a well-intentioned but de facto abandonment.
Any other witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, questions or comments from the committee? Ms. Gonzalez?
Assemblymember, I just want to thank you for bringing this forward. I'd like to be added as a co-author, if possible, to this bill. And in response, I think, to some of the things said, nothing in this bill prevents cities from having parking regulations, from preventing overnight parking. And I think that that's clear. And I don't think any of us who would support this today thinks that this is a solution for homelessness. The fact is, people are homeless. And if the option is being able to sleep in their car or sleep on the street, I want to give them that opportunity, especially a mother with children. I can't even imagine voting against a bill that would allow a mother and her children to sleep in a car that was available to her because somebody feels like they might be a threat to that neighborhood. So I find that offensive, and quite frankly, I'm proud to move this bill.
Second.
Thank you.
We have a motion from Ms. Gonzalez. I will second it. Any further questions or comments from the committee? Ms. Waldron.
I won't be able to support it today, but a lot of it has to do with the local control issue, and I think no one would be opposed to a woman and her children staying together and being in the car. It's not that at all. It's just, coming from a city that had a lot of issues, I think leaving some discretion to the local police and the authorities, when they come upon a vehicle, is a concern of mine because we have traffic stops where we've got ex-cons with sawed-off shotguns under the seats and all of this going on in my town. So, allowing some discretion. And as was said, there could be other options where people could stay in the cars and maybe be safer and more together, things like that. So I can't support it in this form.
Thank you. Mr. Alejo.
This is trying to touch at a very difficult issue for many communities with the homelessness around the state. But I do have concerns coming from a local government perspective about the bill. But I think certainly here in Sacramento we've had discussions about affordable housing, and the state unfortunately eliminated the most important tool for affordable housing in our communities, which was the 28% set aside that used to exist in the redevelopment law. They said something was going to come from the ashes, that we were going to bring back a program for cities to put local tax increment in an affordable housing fund. It hasn't happened for several years now. I'm moving a bill that's trying to address it, the issue of homelessness, real money for local communities to build shelters, to put up winter shelters when they're needed, and transitional housing for mothers with children, housing for farm workers, those of us who represent rural areas. Those are the real answers, and certainly our speaker has another bill trying to create another separate fund for housing. I'm all for that. If this bill was only talking about criminal penalties, I'd probably see it a little differently, but it's addressing both civil and criminal enforcement mechanisms. And if you eliminate all tools, then any local ordinance wouldn't have any teeth to them. And so I know you're nodding your head, but I disagree with you. And so to eviscerate every mechanism for enforcement, I think that's also unreasonable, and we have to find a balance there. And I think if this bill took a different, more balanced approach, I would be able to support it. But I'm just going to stay off this bill today and see how the bill as it moves forward. But I do, like many people say, many of us who come from local government, once we get here, we tend to forget that lens, that local government lens, and I want to make sure we don't forget that. But I know what your intent is. And certainly trying to address the needs of our most vulnerable in our communities. I get that as well, but I'm looking for a more balanced approach on this bill. So that's why I'm just staying off this bill and see if we could find that as the bill moves through the legislative process.
Thank you. Seeing no further question, Mr. Cooley.
I was more just going to make a comment. This is an interesting bill that in an odd way I sort of resonate with. In my business career, I often flew around the country, and because I had a full-time job, an elected official, I'd often take the red eye. And I actually, in my career, would do the thing where I would get a red eye and I'd land somewhere at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning and have a 9 o'clock business meeting, and I'd get in that car and I would go someplace to find a place where I could park and snooze for a little bit. And so I sort of resonate with the notion of a vehicle providing a safe and secure spot. And we can think back of Michael Jordan, whose father was at a funeral and then left and was late and pulled off on the side of the road to sleep and was murdered. So the whole notion of, persons get in a circumstance in their lives where they are needing some sort of respite. And I sort of see this as that type of item. It gives a person a safe space, a more controlled space against the hazards of the external circumstances than they might otherwise have. So I can understand the issue, so I'm actually going to be supporting the bill. I think the question of how you balance things, I mean, I do take note that there can be time and place restrictions on parking, and but I just think, this does leave a tool in the toolkit of someone who is in extremely marginal situations, but has one asset to kind of work with to create a habitable space for them, their kids, so anyway, that's sort of how I see what's going on.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Cooley. Seeing no further questions or comments from the committee, Mr. Chu, you may close.
Oh, thank you very much. I just wanted to respond to some of the comments made by my colleague here. First of all, I wanted to stress that the intention of this bill is not to encroach on the investigative authority of the police officer. This is not to weaken the local control. It was pretty much just a tweak of the vehicle code and to not allow the local enforcement officers to issue tickets. As a legislative body in every meetings, we change the law. Sometimes we add the items to the code, to the law, and sometimes we remove some. And this is really just to remove the little part to say we encourage police officers who may still interact with the sleeping driver, and if they have reason to believe the person is acting suspiciously or is in need for assistance. This is not saying that police, you cannot approach a parking car with people sitting or sleeping in there. We actually would like to, my experience with talking to some of the San Jose police officers, they sometimes feel reluctant, but they go by the book. They have to issue a parking ticket to those people that are sleeping in the car. And after a few parking tickets, if the offender, or in this case, the people didn't really commit a crime, but it was really create a social problem, cannot afford to pay for the ticket. And then what happened? Their car got towed away. Once the car got towed away, to recover for their cars, they have to pay for the fine, they have to pay for the towing charge, they have to pay for the storage fee before they can get their car back. And in the community, especially where I represent in San Jose, as a city council, I have heard repeatedly how often the Latino community, the person of a Latino background, end up losing their car by pretty much the similar cause that I'm addressing here. So I want to specify that this is really not encroaching on the local authority. And if a city like San Jose was thinking about having a part of the public space just for the people to drive their car or their recreation vehicle to sleep there overnight, this bill will actually encourage them, not to discourage them. There's no language to say that the local government cannot have allocated a spot for people to drive their car to it. I know this is true because I authored it, sir. I don't know, maybe you read it differently.
Yes, I did.
But this bill was saying that if the people sleeping in the car, the police officer should go in do whatever the person feel necessary without issuing a ticket. So with that, I don't know if you will allow my witness to.
I think we can take that as your close.
Okay. Well, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. I'd ask the clerk to please call the roll. Oh, and the motion, just for clarification, do pass as amended per comment 5 in the analysis to clarify the bill applies to all cities, including charter cities, and to include an explicit prohibition on the impoundment of vehicles.
The motion is do pass as amended. Mainshine.
Aye.
Mainshine, aye. Gonzalez. Gonzalez, aye. Alejo. Alejo not voting. Chu. Chu, aye. Cooley. Cooley, aye. Gordon. Gordon, aye. Holden. Holden, aye. Linder. Linder, aye. Waldron. Waldron, no.
Your motion is out 7-1.
Thank you.